Welcome to the Show Me Podcast with your host, Geoff Livingston.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Show Me Podcast. I am joined by LA fashion photographer, Dallas Logan. Everybody say hi to Dallas. Dallas.
Hey, everybody. Hey, everybody. How are you?
How are you, Dallas?
I'm fine, Geoff. Thank you for having me. I'm flattered and I'm honored to be here.
Oh, man. Dude, I love your glasses. Those are awesome, man.
Thank you. It's a company called Caddis, C-A-D-D-I-S, and they make reader glasses. I'm at the age I need reader glasses.
Yeah, man. I know.
But I like the frame so much that I purchased the frames and just got my prescription put in.
Oh, awesome. Very cool.
I'll send you a link on, I have some really amazing frames. I'll send you a link on, I'll send you a DM on Instagram.
All right. Send it to me on the IG.
I send it on the IG.
I know, man. I'm like, that's what my kid calls it. It's the IG, Dad.
So it still creeps me out when they say slide into my DMs.
I know. That's just,
You never had a good connotation.
Hey, so a lot of people probably in my listening group, because I'm in DC and we have like a ton of photojournalists and that kind of group here that are following me. Tell them a little bit about you and your background. I mean, I've seen your work. I mean, it's fantastic. You're a master of lighting.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm originally from Cuba, and my family came over in the 70s with the whole Cuban refugee migration to the United States. My family migrated up to the East Coast, and we ended up settling in New York. So I lived in New York for most of my life.
Awesome.
And I just recently moved to LA in the past 6 years.
Oh, wow. It's weird, isn't it?
And today is my 30th year anniversary. So I've been an established professional photographer for 30 years as of today. So you got me on my anniversary.
Amazing, man. Happy anniversary is Shutterbug, man. That's pretty cool. And you and I met on Clubhouse. I basically fell into your room. I just saw this room where it said, light is light, leave your feelings, whatever, to the side or whatever.
Real talk for real photographers, leave your feelings at the door. Right.
And I'm a Philly boy, so I'm like, yeah, that's my kind of place, you know?
That explains it all. Yeah.
There you go. And, and I walked into the room and I'm just setting the stage for everybody. And the room is a very fascinating conversation. And it's about race and photography and fashion photography in particular. And it's hardcore, man. There's things are not getting left on unsaid. Everything's on the floor. It's on the table. People are having real hard conversations, and I'm loving it, right? And I'm just listening. And I come back another day, same thing, over and over again. But not always the same exact, specific topic, but same hardcore conversations. And generally the same kind of gist where we're getting down to really hardcore societal issues facing photographers, but not just photographers, facing everybody. So tell me a little bit about Light is Light and why you created it.
Well, Light is my company's name. And I specialize in teaching photographic lighting, commercial lighting to anybody who wants to learn lighting. I do workshops. Well, they were much heavier before COVID, but I do workshops. And sometimes I'll get hired as a lighting portion to other people's workshops. So that's when everybody talks about me, I always use the phrase light is light. So when we joined Clubhouse, I want to say November, maybe. Mm-hmm. This is May. Yeah, October, November, we joined Clubhouse. And there was a lot of fluffy rooms out there.
Oh, yeah. Still are, right?
Still are. There's a lot of fluffy rooms. There's a lot of feel-good rooms. And there's a lot of liars out there. So there was no one talking about real things that photographers go through. And every time I would bring up an issue in one of these other rooms, things would go a little left because a lot of people who aren't in the industry talk about their feelings as opposed to talking about fact. So if you say something like, you need to get if you want to do commercial photography, you need to do ABC. And then somebody will go, well, I feel it shouldn't have to be done that way. It's like, I don't care what you feel. This is how it is.
Right.
And, well, if it was me, it's not if it was you, this is how it's done. So you have these conversations and nobody wanted to hear those conversations. So my partner, Day Howerton, and I decided to start a room called Real Talk for Real Photographers, Leave Your Feelings at the Door. And when we started that room, a lot of people started coming in there and we started having these hardcore conversations. It could be about pricing. It could be about portfolio development. It could be about how to get an agent, but the real stuff, not the fluffy stuff. And it just progressed from there.
Right. Interesting. So I want to talk about the race issues. It's interesting to me because I just documented all these Trump protests for 4 years. I think, I told you my family has a civil rights background. My great-granduncle started the Anti-Defamation League. We're still involved with the ADL as a family. In fact, I got a couple of emails about it today. So it's something that we talk about in general. And I don't feel like people have the kind of conversations that you have in the public in this manner. Even the media conversations we seem to have about are like this thick. They don't get that deep, right?
No, they don't.
So let's talk and I'm looking at my notes over here in case people see me looking over here. Just want to explain that. Okay. One of the things that maybe we could start with is the kind of rolling controversy that seems to happen with fashion magazines and covers, and particularly when they feature black models, where they're like, photographed by a white person, or if they're like retouched to the point where the person doesn't have any skin tone, or they're like the color of volcanic ash, or, what, tell me your opinion on this general issue. And is it getting any better?
Well, what begins to happen, a couple of artists, one is by the name of Chris Scholler, and another one is Annie Leibovitz, everybody talks about. And there's another one, Tyler Mitchell, who's the new Wunderkind on the market. What's beginning to happen is, with the advent of digital photography and people getting a better understanding of what light does to skin, a lot of people aren't understanding style. So Annie Leibovitz will do these covers. As Annie Leibovitz does, Annie Leibovitz has her style.
She has her style. I don't love it, but
every
that's her.
Every photographer has one, exactly. But what begins to happen is, and we've all been here, we try to apply the same style to different subject matters. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't always work out. I remember when I first crossed over into digital photography, because I always done film, I was shooting a lot of black people, and I learned a particular style of how I like my photos to look. Once I began shooting Caucasian people and I applied those same styles, the photographs were fucking horrible. It was like, what am I doing? And of course, I still kept trying to force this black style on white skin. It just wasn't happening. And so that's what people are seeing. They're looking at Annie's style and look at Chris Scholler's style and realize they're not liking what they see. And they want to get pissed off at that. So they're beginning to think that Annie is being disrespectful to black skin. And that's not the case. Annie's just doing Annie. And it doesn't.
She's a one-trick pony.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not always applying to all skin tones. So we had a conversation about Simone Biles, and it was just a really
that was a horrible photo shoot.
Poor photo shoot. It really was.
Like that one shot with her against the wall where she's just in shadow completely.
It was just bad.
Horrible.
Like she wasn't taking Simone into consideration. But you know what? It was Annie's style.
Yep.
And that was and people were having an argument. They were really bitching about her style. It just happened to be put on a black person. And that's what made it doubly bad. But since then till now, she just recently shot Amanda Gorman. The photos are beautiful.
Yeah, I saw the covers. It was nice.
It's a different experience. So, and another thing, you shouldn't have shot Simone that way. You don't take a gymnast who's 4 foot tall and try to do this fashion shoot. It doesn't work. So they took Simone out of her element.
Muscle tone, right? Like, let's see the incredible muscle tone of this Olympian.
Exactly. You took her out of her element. You put in an element that wasn't conducive for her. Then you do Annie on her, and it was just awful.
Right. But
because
how come
you did photos with the family outside, they were beautiful. That was Annie. But when you try to do that studio shit and the fashion, it just didn't work for her. So people were in uproar about that. You should have black artists shoot black talent, all this stuff. And that really wasn't the argument. That shouldn't have been the argument, because when you're a competent photographer, it doesn't matter your skin tone.
Right.
I
they
shoot
look amazing.
People, I shoot white people, I shoot Asians, and there is no you have to shoot black people this way or you have to shoot white people this way. No.
It's all about really making your subject look great, right? And
That's all.
flattering them.
It's about falling in love with your subject.
Yeah. And you have to be a master of light, Dallas.
Yes, light is light. Yeah, exactly. So,
See, I teed you up on that one.
Thank you.
But still, there's still some challenges, though, with it, right? Like the whole thing that happened with Kamala Harris and her photo shoot and how she was kind of like, whitewashed. Her skin tone was like, I think they must have knocked the saturation down 30 or 40% in retouching. And it was crazy, it seemed like.
Tyler Mitchell's the new kid on the block.
Okay.
And he doesn't have the experience yet. And out of 135 years of American Vogue's existence, he was the Black representation of the Black photographer. And so he shot Beyonce. Mm-hmm. And either you loved it or you hate it. But again, that was his style. So when he applied his style to Kamala Harris, it didn't go over well. It just, we have to, and so now what's the argument? Annie's white. She had a bad shoot with the black subject. Tyler Mitchell's black. He had a bad shoot with the black subject. So now, so you begin to say, what's the argument now? What are you going to hop on?
It's the retoucher's fault.
So what it boils down to is when you're working in those situations, you never know how much time he had. You never know what constraints he may have had at that time. Because sometimes when you're working with, and I hate to use this phrase, an important figure or celebrity, sometimes you all of 10, 15 minutes.
Right.
To really get it. So you have to nail it. And I think what happened with Tyler was he's not experienced enough yet. You put him in the big leagues and he's not ready.
So it's so funny you say that because my friend is Lawrence Jackson. I don't know if you know him, but yes, he is Kamala's personal photographer. Right. And he was Michelle Obama's personal photographer. And Lawrence is a fantastic guy. He's really encouraged me. And he actually wrote a very lovely note in his book to my daughter, Soleil. And now my daughter is now photographing. She's 10 years old, rocking a camera. It's freaking awesome.
That's how you do it.
But Lawrence strikes me as somebody that knows his subject so well. And the photos he gets of her are so intimate. And it's just like you feel like Kamala when you see these images.
Exactly.
And I think that speaks a lot to what you're talking about. Just having those 10 minutes is not enough to really create rapport.
But he would have 10 minutes and it would work.
Right.
Because you love your subject. So you understand your subject. So you understand the angles. You understand what you need to get in order to make that the beautiful shot. The difference between a good photograph and a great photograph is love. The subject falls in love with the photographer for 1/25th of a second, because that's all you need. And if you get that, you know you got it. For example, I always use Naomi Campbell as the analogy. Sometimes you see Naomi Campbell and she has some really nice photos. Then you see her sometimes and the photos are otherworldly. Those otherworldly photos, that one moment her and the photographer fell in love. There was no love between Tyler and Kamala at all. There was no love whatsoever. There was no love between Annie and Simone, but there was love between Annie and Amanda.
Yeah,
you see the love when she shot Serena. When she shot Serena Williams, you saw the love. So that was the difference between the two.
What do you think about opportunities then in this space for Black photographers? Do you think that it's getting better? Do you think that we have a lot of progress to go? Can you give me kind of like your quick State of the Union? Because of the DC guys, right? State of the Union.
Because of the death of George Floyd, it put a big microscope on the world as a whole.
Right.
And a lot of the brands are playing catch up. So Sony's has all these ambassadors now, and Nikon is getting all these ambassadors, and Profoto. They're doing it right now because it's in vogue. And it's sad that we had to have somebody dying for somebody to open their eyes. But what's beginning to happen is they're starting to flood the market with some not so competent photographers merely because they're checking off a button. Now, mind you, while this is going on, some amazing photographers are coming through the trenches. Let's not get it twisted. There's Dana Scruggs. She's coming through the trenches. There's a wonderful female photographer by the name of Loretta Houston. she's coming through the ranks right now. But the reason why this is happening is because the talent is requesting this. There's Dario Thomas who shot Viola Davis for the cover of Vanity Fair. These artists, these subject matters, they're picking the Black people to shoot them and standing on their guns. Like saying, if you want to shoot me, you have to get me a Black photographer.
Send Annie home.
Send Annie home. He's had a great run. It's time. So when Masson Harris shot for British Vogue, for the September issue of British Vogue, we're being requested for these slots. So it's not that Vogue is opening their doors and saying, everybody come in. It's not that Profoto opening their arms. No, we're being requested now.
Which is good. So whether it's the subjects demanding it, I mean, that's good. What I don't like about it, and I'm just going to speak from my heart, is that I feel like it shouldn't be this way in the sense that it's like, oh, we need to have a certain quota, right? It should be we're looking for the best photographer to do the job.
Color notwithstanding. Exactly.
Yeah.
And I agree with you wholeheartedly.
But if that was the case, then we'd have a lot more. And this is a good position point to go into our next topic, diversity, without having to search for diversity. Like it shouldn't be intentional, right?
It should be intentional.
It shouldn't be intentional. We should be literally giving people the right and the opportunity to kick ass.
Exactly. I agree.
Yeah. Now, we were talking a little bit via email about diversity and kind of whitewashing portfolios and, just kind of making everything look like, hey, I've got my quota, right, of the right amount of photos for each people to get the job.
And yes.
And so I think this is the same issue, right, where we're not letting people evolve their skills into a manner that would necessarily follow their heart, where they want to shoot, their creative spirit. This is like a marketing thing you have to do today to be a successful photographer, this kind of diversity portfolio, and tell me about how that's impacting Black photographers today.
Since I'm in the world of commercial photography, that's the only world I can talk about in regards to how this happens.
Yeah.
And when we all first start shooting, we start shooting those who we know. We start shooting friends, we start shooting family members, and they tend to look like us.
Sure.
So you advance to shooting models, and you tend to go with what you know. So if you were to see an Asian portfolio, most often than not, you have a lot of Asian models. If you see a white portfolio, you tend to have a lot of white people. With me, there's a lot of people of color, Black people. And what begins to happen is when I started approaching the agencies about getting representation, I got the answers, your work is amazing, but you need to be a little bit more diverse in your subject matters. And that's code word was, I need more white people. So some of them were actually forthcoming and saying, do you shoot whites? And there were whites in my book. And I'm saying, yes, shoot white people. You say in my book, you need to have more. So they were being real forthcoming about it. So I said, okay, so I do what I have to do. But then I started asking my white friends, have they ever asked you about your books? They're like, no, I never had that question before. And when you look at the book, of course, they wouldn't tell you to whiten up your book because your book is practically white. But did they ever tell you that you need to shoot more Black people or more Latin people or Asian people or more Indian people? They're like, no. And I started asking all my professional colleagues who were white, did they come across that? They never had it. But once I asked all my commercial Black photographer friends, they all got that same message.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that because I've shot a lot of events and I've photographed people of all sorts of different creeds, cultures, whole 9 yards, and nobody's ever asked me that.
We Not get it once. Time. But now since they can't say you need more white people in your book, they'll say something like, do you have a little bit more diversity? Do you have we would love to see some blondes in your book, or we would love to see we would like you to be a little bit more well-rounded. So those are the code phrases that they mean to whiten up your book. Or take out, you have too many Blacks in your book.
Another one where I heard was like, if you have a diverse group of talent, right, where you have like, let's say some white photographers and Black photographers, the Black photographers will get questioned more or get asked like expertise, like, are you sure about this, and questioned, and whether or not they're knowledgeable, which is just
all the time.
Absolutely fucked up. I don't know how else to say
partner,
it. It's a rated R podcast, folks. It's fucked up.
My partner went to go interview with an agency in Los Angeles, and his name is Day, D-A-E, and he met with an Asian company. And I think he got the meeting because they thought Day was Asian. So he goes in for the meeting, and he's sitting there waiting to be seen. And they're like, "Oh, who are you here to see?" So he got into the office, and they're looking through his portfolio, his hard book portfolio. And it's like, "Well, what did you do on this photograph?" He said, "Everything other than the hair and makeup." "So who did the lighting?" "I did." "Who did the retouch?" "I did." And it's like every time they turn the page in his book, like, "Your book is really good. What did you do on this photograph?" He's like, "It's my concept. It's my photography. Again, everything but the hair and makeup. And if there's fashion, then I didn't do the styling, but I did everything else." And we have to jump over these hurdles every single time. So yeah, so that's what we go through. My experience is there's this imaginary bar that's out there for photographers, and Black photographers are automatically seen below the bar, even before you see our work. There's this
or the
bar.
goalposts are that much further, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what our work look like. We already come in as a deficit. So we have to prove ourselves just to get to the same point as our white counterparts. And then we go from there. But by then, they're already taken off.
That's crazy.
And that's just based on mindset. But then you see Tyler Mitchell, and you go, "That's what we're talking about."
Right. But he's there now, and so he's almost got like that star effect, right? Where we don't call fouls on him, right?
No, can't do that.
Right? So,
Can't do that.
So what, and I feel like this is a larger subconscious kind of bias. What does progress look like? What does progress look like in your mind for us, and how can people like me make a difference?
Just by listening and bringing us up in those conversations. What happens is there seems to be this level of fear that white photographers have that we're going to come in and take all their work. Like we took over basketball, or we took over dancing, or we took over music. That's not the case. That's this mindset they have. And there's a lot of work out there for everybody, and we all can eat. But what begins to happen is no one's letting us get in the door. So the gatekeepers have got to open the doors and let us in. And I can speak for all Black photographers. We don't want the handout. That's not what we're looking for. We just want the opportunity. And then let our books stand side by side, and let the best person qualified get the job. And that's what we don't have.
That makes sense. And I agree with you. I mean, like, photographers are so unique as a people, right? We're so creative in the way we express ourselves. Like, I remember I went to Cuba with, actually there were 7 of us that went down there. This photo that's kind of cut off over there is from that nice. Trip. And all 7 of us were shooting the exact same material for 6 days, side by side. None of our photos looked
alike. Exactly.
No, all creatively different. And and I still shoot the same way. Like, I look at that and that's like, yeah, that's me. That's
your visual signature.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit more on a more uplifting note to end the podcast. Cause I also sense talking to you, you're like, and just listening to you more than anything in the room, you're like a really good mentor. Like, I think you care a lot about this industry, and I think you care a lot about developing people. Where'd you get that sense of, I would say, almost like service to your fellow colleagues?
When I decided that I wanted to do this for real, my very first mentor is a street photographer named Joe Wickfall. And he said to me, "You're going to be a teacher when this is all said and done." I'm like, "Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to be the next Gordon Parks." He's like, "Oh, no, you're going to be a teacher." And I never had Black mentors other than this particular gentleman, because Black photographers have a mindset of there's a crab in the barrel mentality amongst our people. Mm-hmm. And a mentor would want you to be good, but not as good as. So I can learn from you, but you're only going to teach me so much because you don't want me to now become your competition. That's the mindset I've had. So over the years, I've had really amazing mentors who taught me some amazing things, and they happen to be white people. They never thought about, and now I could go back in hindsight and said, maybe they looked at me being black and I wouldn't be seen like a threat. It could have been that. I don't think so. I think they were like me, and they found somebody who was passionate and hungry with what they do and said, okay, I'm going to pass this knowledge on to you. And what began to happen is I always would say to them, how can I pay you back? And they say, don't pay me back, pay it forward.
Pass it on. Pass it on.
So what I begin to see with my people is they all want to be in this business. They all want to quit their 9-to-5 and be these amazing commercial photographers or photographers that make money, regardless what the genre is. But they weren't producing the work to compete in the world. And that's where the fights begin. You try to tell them, they'll say, how can I get to the proverbial next level? And the first thing I would say is, you got to shoot better. Better subjects, better topics, better photography, better lighting. All of that stuff needs to be elevated. So I said, if you want to be taken as a commercial photographer, you have to shoot work that looks commercially viable.
Yeah.
That's what I say. What they hear is, oh, you want me to shoot white?
I mean, like a killer photo is a killer photo.
A killer photo is a killer photo.
Yeah.
Bar none. But that's what I get met with. So it's like, it's a constant, I want my people to elevate themselves. I want them to be better. No matter what, I don't care what you shoot. Just shoot it better. And that's always been my life's work right now. So when people ask me what my legacy is going to be, I thought I was going to be like Annie L, or be like Gordon Parks and have like this, or Abaddon and have like this amazing repertoire work. And I realized that may not be my journey. My journey is producing good artists. So every time they take a photo, I see my DNA in their work, and they get to pass it on.
So in the Buddhist tradition, there's a word, it's called bodhisattva, somebody that's a spiritual teacher. And when I heard you discuss this, it makes me think you're a bodhisattva.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
It is a compliment.
I wish they wouldn't fight me, though.
Well, that's, they got to go through the pain. I got to go through the pain. I can't speak for other people. I learned the hard way, but
some people learn through trauma. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. And Clubhouse, though, I feel like has been good for me in that sense, like where I see these people that are at this level. And, I would say before Clubhouse, I wouldn't have these types of conversations with photographers, right? Like I'd see stuff on IG, but I don't really care about IG that much, or other networks like Flickr or whatever back in the day. And when I talk to people on Instagram, I'm like, man, I don't think like that, but I should be. And I need to like kind of ratchet it up. And I've definitely ratcheted it up, and I continue to ratchet it up in my own style and niche.
Of course.
I'm not a fashion guy, but I feel like the peers help peers accelerate. And I think like when I'm around winners, I want to win more. And I love hearing how you were talking about this today.
Well, thank you very much. Clubhouse became, what I liked about Clubhouse is it removed the BS or the bullshit for a moment. And I was introduced to a plethora of photographers I never knew existed. Men, women, black, white, Indian, Asian, all over the place. And it was like, oh my God, there's some amazing talent out here. And I would never have come across them if it wasn't for Clubhouse. So I'm glad COVID helped this happen, because COVID was the answer. Well, Clubhouse was the answer to COVID.
Yes, sir.
So that was what was needed. And now we're having conversations like this. We would have never met.
No way.
In any other circumstance.
And it's so awesome. Like we've both got a gray beard, bald guys with glasses talking smack about photography.
That's it. Exactly.
All right. One more thing and we'll wrap. You got a fantastic little guide that you put together, Light as Light. And I was looking at it right before we got on. I'm going to buy it as soon as we get out of here, because it not only tells people how to light, but it shows the diagrams, like here's the positioning, here's the angle. And like for a guy like me, that's all I need. And I love the way you talk about 45-degree angles with octas, because the guy that taught me how to light said, Da Vinci, 45 degrees. If you do it like that, you cannot screw it up. It's hard. Exactly. You can't do it.
Exactly.
So tell people how to find it, and we'll shake and bake for the day.
Well, I have an ebook called Light is Light. And it's an ebook that teaches professional studio lighting. It covers commercial beauty, editorial beauty, commercial fashion, editorial fashion, portraiture lighting, as well as body lighting. You can get it on my my bio, which is in my Instagram under I am Dallas J. Logan. And what makes it good, Geoff, is I tell everybody our relationship doesn't stop at the shopping cart. A lot of people produce their books and their materials, and once you make the purchase, they're done with you. I work a little bit differently. If you decide to buy the book, you have access to me with any and all questions.
That's awesome.
So there's been times where I've had people buy the book and they may have taken the book out at a photo shoot and they needed to tweak something. So they'll FaceTime me. I'll look at what's going on and say, oh, make this slight adjustment, and everything falls into place. So I'm a man of my word.
Bodhisattva.
I just want people to do I want to do for people like people did for me.
You're amazing, man. That was, I really appreciate your time today. I had a really good conversation with you. I hope people enjoyed it as much as I did. And I can't wait to see you back in Light is Light.
Nice. Thank you so much, Geoff. Thank you for having me, man.
Cheers, my friend.
Have a good day.
Thanks for listening to the Show Me Podcast with Geoff Livingston. More shows, sponsorship, and donation information are available at showmepodcast.com.